Madam Chair and members. Good afternoon. House Bill 129 shortens the state employee probationary period from 1 year to 6 months. This only impacts employees in the executive branch that fall under the purview of the State Personnel Board. As defined in the Personnel Act, I've been very pleased to work with the State Personnel Office and incorporate their feedback into the timeline in this legislation. Basically, the reason for bringing forward this bill is to really bring forward the benefits to decrease uncertainty, reduce vacancies, and create greater stability within the team departments and agencies. So under the system of 1 year, we are spending a lot of resources training probationary employees who may not become a permanent employee, and at the same time making life difficult for the staff that is already employed at these agencies. This bill is basically asking agencies to make these decisions more quickly. They can and should be made more quickly. And through that, we are going to serve the new employees, the teams that they are joining, as well as the constituents of state agencies. I have with me an expert witness, President of CWA, and I'd like for her to introduce herself, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Megan Green. I am the president of CWA Local 7076. We represent public workers here at 13 agencies across the state of New Mexico. I am also a current state employee. I've been a state employee for 10 years and I have personal experience with some of what we'll discuss here today. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Are you ready, Representative, for us to proceed? Thank you. So we will go to the Zoom audience and ask if there is any opposition on Zoom to House Bill 129. Any opposition? None. All right. On Zoom, any those in favor of House Bill 129, will you raise your hand?
Dylan Pell.
Thank you, Madam Chair of the committee. My name is Dylan Pell, and I am here with Communication Workers of America as a union steward. I have worked in state government for over 6 years. I'm here to ask that you support House Bill 12 and to share my experience with how the long probationary period harms workers and the state. Because workers on probationary periods are terminated without demonstrating just cause, this has led to patterns of management willfully mistreating and sometimes violating labor rights of probationary employees. In my work unit, I watched as my coworker with a disability sought reasonable accommodation and experienced fierce retaliation as a probationary employee. She was ultimately terminated on the last day of probation despite being a successful worker in her position. She would not be the last coworker I witnessed experience cruel treatment or harassment while on probation. We keep hearing these stories. It is my understanding several of these workers have since brought legal actions against the state for unlawful treatment violating their civil rights. In addition to legal liability, long probationary periods and mistreatment of probationary employees has damaged the reputation of the state as an employer for prospective workers and for those of us who continue our service. I believe 6 months is more than enough time for a manager to assess the job readiness of a worker, and the shortened probationary periods will improve the state's ability to hire and retain its workforce it needs and reduce costs by lessening legal liability. Being able to terminate someone without just cause
I believe you went to
violate individual civil liberties. Thank you again for your support of HB 1.
Thank you.
Victoria Leonard.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Victoria Leonard, and I've been an employee of the Healthcare Authority for 5 years and a local union president for AFSCME. We want to thank our sponsor for bringing this bill, and we agree that the 1 year probation period is too long. An employer and an employee will know within 6 months time frame if an employee is going to be a good fit for an employment. A shorter probationary time frame is going to help with employee recruitment It's going to allow for employees to be able to take part in benefits sooner that they might not have otherwise been eligible for until they complete their probationary periods, such as being able to promote or move to different departments. This allows for career growth. It would also allow an employee to feel integrated into their position sooner, which in the long run is going to help boost an employee engagement and morale. Thank you for your time.
Right. There are no others on Zoom. So now we will go to the audience and all those that are here in opposition that wish to make a comment. Raise your hands. Do we have anyone outside? No one outside. All right. So all those that are present that wish to speak in support, please raise your hands. Okay. So everyone is towards the back. So if you would just step forward, and again, the mic will be held for you. Thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. John Lipschutz with the New Mexico Federation of Labor, AFL-CIO. Here once again to thank the sponsor very much for bringing up this measure, and we stand in strong solidarity with our public sector brothers and sisters on this bill. Really, the previous speaker said everything that I think that needs to be said on this bill. So for those reasons, we urge your support. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. My name is Dylan Lang. I'm the State Personnel Office Director. I stand in support of the bill. I think it's a great compromise between the needs of management and the agency to ensure that they have the right employee, that this employee is trained with the benefits that can be brought for employees standing for 6 months. I think in tandem with some of the state board rules related to now trainings required for managers, we think that we'll be in a great place to ensure that agencies are prepared to deal with this change. I think the only comments that State Personnel Office had were technical changes potentially to, let's put it in the definition instead of the rulemaking position, and we can work with you, but generally speaking, shortening the probationary period to 6 months, State Personnel Office supports. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Carter Bundy with AFSCME. These are my favorite bills where I get to follow management and we have workers and management on the same page on a bill. I do want to thank Director Lang of SPO, and also we've spoken to the governor and Diego Arancon about this. Representative Sapansky has been a great advocate for state employees. The reason that you see so much widespread support and really no opposition so far to this bill is frankly that this is an important piece to help our recruiting and retention, especially at the front end where we need to get a lot more people in the door and keep them, and yet we're not sacrificing any of the standards. The agencies all gave input to the State Personnel Office and to the governor, and I think it's clear that they felt that they could adequately determine whether someone was going to be a fit for their agency within 6 months. And in fact, a few of them that we've spoken to said, we like this because it makes us pay more attention right from the beginning and make sure we're getting them the training, so that because management doesn't want to waste 11 months investing in someone or 12 months and then they don't end up making it. So we think this is a true win-win for the state. It'll hopefully address some of the concerns that I know all of you have about our staffing and agencies, and urge you to support the bill. Thank you.
Madam Chair and Committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Linsey Hurst. I currently serve as the Executive Vice President of CWA Local 7076. Our union represents state employees at 13 agencies, about 3,000 positions. Our union workers support a shortened probationary period to improve efficiency, reduce waste, and give new employees career status benefits such as alternative work schedules sooner. During my 10 years as a state employee and my 4 years as a union officer, I have witnessed employees let go during the last week of probation with and without cause. Often, state agencies wait to take action on letting go of employees who are not a good fit, causing programs to waste time and resources on training for almost a year. Generally, it is clear whether or not an employee is going to work out within the first month or two on the job. One of the most experienced and competent hires, the NMED AQB Compliance Inspections Unit that I worked with, was pressured to finish and turn in assignments, threatened with canceled leave to attend her daughter's graduation, and then walked out the door on the last day of probation without cause. We have also lost competent probationary employees because they are forced to work a strict 8 to 5 schedule due to the inability to adjust their schedule to leave at 4:30 to pick up their kids from daycare or school on time. Please pass House Bill 129. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and representatives. My name is Ann Keller, and I've been a state employee for over 11 years here in New Mexico. I am the treasurer of the local 7076, and I'm here in my union steward capacity. I respectfully request that you support and pass House Bill 129. Under the terms of our State of New Mexico collective bargaining agreement, union stewards are prohibited from assisting members that are in employees that are in union covered positions until they finish their probationary period. Recently, an employee who had just finished that 1 year probationary period contacted me, and it was in regards to issues with her supervisor. The member confided in me that she was very close to quitting and she already had her applications out and to other private engineering firms. She's a very talented individual. As I dug into the background of the case, the employee revealed to me that for about 6 months, she'd been struggling with domestic abuse, being kicked out of her home by the abuser and living unhoused for a period of time, getting restraining orders against the abuser, depression, and other mental and emotional trauma that comes along with what she had been experiencing. The member did not bring that trauma to the workplace because she was, during that 6 months of time, she was still under probation, and she was very fearful that her supervisor would just can her and send her home. Our steward team was able to help her, and we did quickly resolve that. But the point that I'd like to make is that had her probationary period been 6 months, we could have stepped in quicker. We could have helped her quicker. We perhaps, and we did, work with everyone. But thank you very much for your time and for listening.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Jerome Romera. I'm currently serving as the Regional Vice President for Northern New Mexico for our union, CWA. I'm in support of this bill because it does one really critical thing, and it allows us to retain employees. Currently, when employees start their first year with the state, we see 30% of those people that start within their first year don't make it off of probation. They either leave for higher salaries or other benefits. And so anything that we can do to retain the people that we hire, it allows us to continue and push forward. Some of our agencies have 40% vacancy rates. And the sad reality of the probationary period is that we can look back in the data and we can see that some positions are routinely not filled, or routinely no one in those positions makes it their full year. We had one case out of the Department of Cultural Affairs where that position, they had hired 17 different people during the course of those years, and those people didn't make it off of probation. That's 17 different hiring packets that they had to send out for one position within those 17 years. And some agencies, unfortunately, look at it as a turn and burn, right? They're not gonna train those employees. They're just gonna try and use up as much of their abilities as they can before letting them go within a year. So everything that we can do to retain those people allows us to move forward as a state. Thank you.
Are there any others outside? No? All right. There are no other comments. Representative, would you like to close or do we proceed?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I will stand for questions.
Thank you. So we already have a list building. And first on that list is Representative Ortez and followed by Representative Reeb.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative, for bringing this bill. I have a couple questions about the benefits. Should this be enacted, is there any change in benefits that the employees receive? Do they receive benefits after a year, or do they get them as soon as they're hired?
Madam Chair, Representative, not if you're referring to benefits like insurance or increased leave. The only not insurance. Everyone receives insurance benefits upon starting with the state. The benefits we're referring to when we say employees will receive more or enjoy more benefits is things like a more flexible work schedule through the alternate work policy, alternate work schedule policy. They will also be able to receive the fitness wellness policy. I believe those are the only two that are the only two policies that are restricted for non-probationary employees.
Madam Chair, expert. So that is like in terms of accruing vacation time, things like they're getting of where they are now.
Correct, Madam Chair. There is no restriction on using leave during your probationary period, except the fact that leave is accrued. So you have to have accrued enough leave to take that leave. For example, we accrue sick leave 4 hours per pay period. So you would not be able to take a day of sick leave for a month, but you can take sick leave. And
thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I'm so surprised and very ignorant that there was a 1 year probationary period. It seems a little bonkers, to be quite honest. I'm truly, I didn't know that. So I'm sort of concerned, and I guess I have the question to you is why aren't we considering something like 90 days, which is I think pretty customary in the private sector, even in the nonprofit world. That seems like pretty routine, pretty normal.
Madam Chair and Chair Ortez, this time period was a result of a lot of conversation with state personnel. And I think it's fair to say, spend your first 3 months training an employee, really working with them, getting to know them, and then 3 months really assessing, are they able to deliver the responsibilities of that position?
That makes sense, Madam Chair. Thank you very much.
Representative Reeb.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Representative and expert. So I kind of have a little different take on this because I was a government employee for 25 years. I ran an office for half of those years, and I loved the 1 year probationary period. And let me tell you why it seemed to work well where I was, which was the district attorney's office, as you know, because it's a very difficult job to be even an administrative staff person in law enforcement or district attorney's offices, Madam Chair. And what I found is you didn't know in 6 months, whether an employee was going to work out or not. I never had that issue where they were leaving. We had issues more with them having to learn what a criminal docket was, the different ways, the system, working with all the agencies, working with attorneys, complicated documents, subpoenas, things of that nature. And it took 6 months for them to even learn the job. And then we would just try to continue to help them and wanted to give them that whole year to see if they were going to work out. And sometimes it was 9, 10, 11 months. And it just, even to them, it was like, this isn't going to be a good fit for me because this is a very high stress job. And I didn't realize it. Same with the investigators in my office. You could see them towing the line for that 1 year period. And then you come to the 1 year and they're like, I made it through probation. And then all of a sudden I couldn't get them to do hardly anything. So, I mean, I think it's just depending on what agency and government agency you're working with, because I loved the 1 year. I thought 6 months, I would never know, Madam Chair, if this person was a good fit for the office and more so capable of doing the job that was required of a victim advocate, of a investigator, of an IT person, things of that nature. So I wanted to make that comment, and I guess the benefits that you're saying, the benefits of, I heard alternative work schedule and fitness wellness. I'm even exactly sure what that is, because our employees were required to be there, whether they were 2-year employees or 5-year employees or 6-month employees. We were an 8 to 5 job. We were law enforcement, and we had to be there. So I know not every office works that way. But Madam Chair and Representative and Expert, it sounds like some of this is also just workplace environment issues. I mean, if somebody came to me and said, I need to go pick up my kid up from school at 4:30, I mean, it was not an issue in our office, whether they'd been there 30 days or 6. That's how you foster an environment that you want people to stay and not leave, not use an employee for 6 months and have them leave. I wanted longevity. I wanted them to stay. So I guess I just never saw this issue, but that, just making those comments, Madam Chair, I had a question on the no probationary period transferring within departments, I guess, within the same agency. Is that what this is for, Madam Chair, Representative? On page 2, section E, the employees shall not be returned to complete any probationary period upon transfer or otherwise move assignment. This is what I noticed why the 1 year was also good in that situation. For example, I had an HR person who was doing a wonderful job, HR, no issues with his personality or anything like that, but I was going to transfer him then to be my CFO and then also in charge of my office. I wanted him on a 1 year probationary period because handling my millions of dollar budget was very concerning to me, because that was a completely different type of job than what he was doing. And the budget comes around once a year, doesn't come around every 6 months. And that was going to be a process that he had to learn. And so, Madam Chair and experts, and Representative, I felt that was completely appropriate with what I was doing. So, while I understand what you're saying, I think, we'll be talking more with law enforcement and the issues possibly that Representative Hall will talk about with law enforcement and why that 1 year may be appropriate. It just, I don't think, is across the board as easy as it's coming out to be, like this is just too long. So I don't know if you want to comment on that issue, and specifically to like how it affected me, or if you see it being different in different offices. Madam Chair, Representative.
Madam Chair and Representative, appreciate those reflections, and I know that you have such an extensive experience in management. So I would say that while the individual benefits may seem to be minimal, that I think the advantage at the agency level is really significant, because we have 1 in 4 positions in state government are currently vacant. Okay. And only 65% of current hires make it to the 1 year probationary, past the 1 year probationary period. So basically you've got teams that are caught in cycles of having to refill positions over and over and over. And so after a year, if someone is let go, and then it takes an average of 60 days to fill that position again, and then you're sort of asking the rest of the team to cover. And I think that's probably one of the greatest benefits of the shortened probationary period, is for the long-term employees to not constantly having to be covering these vacancies, because managers are making the decisions more quickly. So from a service perspective to the constituents of the agencies, as well as the current teams, it does have those benefits. So in addition to some of the individual benefits that you mentioned. And Madam Chair, Representative, I do want to say that it's not that employees who are performing their duty terminated after the period. So managers do retain the ability to work with those employees, document deficiencies or document training programs and things that are required to come to proficiency in a position. It's simply this also curbing a trend of people waiting until you're in the 11th month to let go of someone that probably could have been let go of much earlier based on performance. So, Madam Chair, those are my comments, and I would, if President Green wanted to add to that.
Madam Chair, I think the only thing I would add is that my understanding is written, this bill would only apply to executive branch employees under the purview of the SPO board and the Personnel Act. So that is a very limited number of state employees.
And I was going to ask you, Madam Chair and expert, could you name off who those employees would be that it would affect? Like what agencies or?
I certainly cannot give you a comprehensive list, Madam Chair. I apologize, but would it be appropriate to ask the SPO director if he's still in the room, or?
Madam Chair, with your permission,
could
we ask Director?
I'm back here.
Yes, could you please just step up closer to the mic? For the webcast. Thank you. Oh, has to be on. I think they have a mic. Okay. There is a mic standing if you'd like to stand right here. That's fine.
I don't know where to go. Madam Chair, members of the committee, yeah, this President Green is correct. This proposed change lives in the Personnel Act, and the Personnel Act only covers classified employees and those agencies with classified employees. So there's a whole list of exemptions within the Act, including members of district attorneys' offices, members of the governor's staff, exempt employees, if you are a policy-making individual, and the list goes on, including our state police as well. They will not cover those. So and I'm currently, though, the state personnel director. I am an exempt position. I am appointed by the governor, and so this would not apply to me. It's only those classified employees, but it is the full breadth of our agencies, except for maybe even the Attorney General right now has classified employees based on a lawsuit 2 years ago. So it's DOH, it's the Health Authority. It's pretty much any agency that you can name, unless it's been specifically accepted under the State Personnel Act.
So, and just while you're up there, so I remember in my office, besides the attorneys being at will, everybody else was protected. So it would protect every other employee. They couldn't be fired at will, I guess, if that makes sense. An attorney could, because of incoming different district attorneys and things of that nature, and attorney poor performance. And there had to be, there didn't have to be a reason, but every other employee, I think besides maybe one, was protected and could not be. Obviously, they could be documented, Madam Chair and Representative, and you could terminate them if they were poor performance after the year. But are you saying that those employees don't apply?
Madam Chair, Representative Reeb, so we do have classified attorney positions within the state. Not at the district attorney offices, they're exempt. But in the state personnel office, we have a general counsel and an attorney position. The general counsel is exempt.
Okay.
Right. But everybody else at state personnel office is a classified employee, which this would apply to, again, except for those few exceptions. So many agencies that have attorneys, most are not exempt. So they would be subject to this provision.
Madam Chair and expert, I appreciate that. And I'm not so concerned about the attorneys, because I do know they're at will, and I could, let them go anytime they're not performing or not meeting the mission that I had when I was district attorney. But I had an office of 40 other employees that every single one of them was on the 1-year probationary period and then completely protected. So I believe it would protect them. But so state police officers will not be on a 1-year probationary period?
Madam Chair, Representative Reeb, yeah, they're outside of our classified system. There are members of DPS employees at DPS that are covered as classified employees, but the police officers are governed by a different provision.
Okay, I think that makes me feel a little better that the police officers. I noted that I would believe it would take a lot longer than 6 months for them to make sure that they get through their training and the things that they need to get through in order to actually be an officer on the street. So that does definitely make me feel better. So I'm guessing, Madam Chair and Representative Expert, that probably the staff and people like that are the protected employees.
Madam Chair, Representative Reeb, yes, at DPS.
Thank you for that. Here, Madam Chair, I guess an expert, I'm not. So why are you, I guess I'm not understanding why you're losing employees based on a probationary period. I guess I don't understand. I did hear one person make a comment saying, well, they go off for better jobs and higher pay raises and things of that nature. That's going to happen whether on probation or not. So that comment, I was kind of like, well, I don't think the probationary period is going to matter on that. But if you could help me understand more the type of, I mean, is it just that they're seeing these people aren't going to work out in 9 months and aren't doing anything before then? Or could it be that they're trying to work with them and then they get to the end of, like I would try to work with them and give them the best chance I could to make this succeed. And then if it got down to the 11th, or 12th month, sometimes it just didn't work. And I did have to make that decision, unfortunately. So I just want to make sure we know for sure that why this is not working and this turnover is happening.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair and Representative Reeb. And I would say for me personally, in terms of sponsoring this legislation, as someone who's managed a lot of staff in the past, I feel very passionately about good management and swift management, right? So you want to get in there with employees right there and prioritize that, even though you've got budgets to approve and you've got policies and procedures that you're working on. You have to commit the time as a manager to spend with those employees. In a year, to me, feels like it allows for that to be sort of put on the back burner. So for me, I'm passionate about this bill because I want for our managers within state government to be excellent managers. And I think this time limit puts some finality on that and really some urgency around that. But I know Ms. Green had shared with me extensive examples of some of the ways that this has been challenging. If she could chime in here.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair, Representative. I believe the latest bill report I read stated that about a quarter of employees were being terminated during the probationary period and the rest were leaving at will. I can think of a few examples in my time in state government. As I mentioned, I am an environmental scientist in Los Alamos. We are a small office. We do oversight monitoring on Los Alamos National Laboratory. There are about 10 of us doing oversight monitoring on the environmental remediation programs across the whole lab. It's a small group. We need to be efficient and we need to have folks come on board that are trained, able to do the jobs. All our jobs, with the exception of one, are advanced level positions, so the highest level positions, correct? We had a hire a couple years ago who was hired from out of state. It was quite evident within the first, I would say, week to the staff who are at the same level as him that he had either lied on or exaggerated on his resume because he, I think, had never conducted any environmental science in the past. It was quite shocking. And we lost an entire year of monitoring data because he did not know how to deploy the monitors required to collect that data in the field. It took almost a year for him to be let go during that probationary period. And that's just an example I can think of where I spent personally nearly a year trying to train someone who had no background on the on what we were trying to do, and really no desire to learn or no ability to complete the job. So we lost a lot of data that year. I think that's one example that comes to mind. So I hate to say I do see that happen quite frequently. I believe, to your question, that it is the fact that some processes within the state move so slowly, I believe. To move forward on terminating someone even during a probationary period seems to be a slow process for some reason.
And so, Madam Chair and expert, just follow up. So in that situation, did you just not know till the end of the year, or why didn't you terminate at 6 months?
Madam Chair, I am not a manager. I am a union member and a scientist myself. He was at the same level as myself. And I will say I did talk to my boss about my concerns about his performance, and that was just how long it took to be dealt with.
Okay, so do you know, well, we can get into examples, I guess, all we want, but Madam Chair. But okay, I appreciate that. I just never really had that experience. Like in that situation, I maybe would have thought this was gonna, work itself out in a year. But I think you can argue both sides of that. But I appreciate your answers, and it's a tough one for me because it's worked very well in my years of being in government. So with that, I do thank you, Representative. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative. Next, we have Representative Hall, followed by Representative Terrazas.
Madam Chair, Madam Leader, expert witness. Some of my questions were asked and answered about law enforcement because I had a definite concern over some of those things, but that's been answered. I was looking at the LFC estimates that this will, by decreasing the cost of the probationary period, it will make, I guess, it go up between 3.2 to 4.3 million, with a general fund impact of 1.6 million, and 2.1 million a total impact of other state funds and federal funds of up to 2.2 million. And that's under the assumption that it will get this LFC's recommendation of 4%. Do you see the 4% recommendation being an annual, or as somewhat noted in here, if you get the expected results of more retention, it might dip off? Do you have any thoughts on that, Madam Chair?
Madam Chair and Representative, our hope is that we will have increased retention because we will have managers that work more swiftly to work with those employees and get them the training and the support that they need. So in terms of that specific estimate, I think it's very hard to say. Our estimators at LFC are terrific, but I don't know if Ms. Green would like to chime in there.
Sure, Madam Chair, Representative. My understanding from the LFC review is that simply that, as is in statute now, employees receive the legislative increase at their 1-year probation. So if whatever increase is appropriated this year, if it's 4%, all off probation employees get it at July 1st, right? And then as people come off probation throughout the year, they receive that increase. So I don't believe it would not be an actual increase in funds. They would simply be getting that money sooner, if that makes sense. They would be getting it at 6 months instead of 1 year.
Madam Chair, and then was there ever any, I know you've given it a lot of thought, Leader Spansky, and I appreciate that. By taking a larger group of employees, because there are just some jobs I would imagine that you just can't learn and actually function at 6 months. Was there any consideration at further separating a little more? Because I could see certain administrative jobs that wouldn't require, that might be, to Representative Ortez's word, make be a 90-day, and others that might be more. Was that ever considered, Madam Chair?
Madam Chair and Representative, certainly different jobs have different requirements in terms of training, but I think this is the 6-month figure was what was settled on as something that would be acceptable for the agencies that fall under this. And again, I do want to stress that the agency still has the opportunity after the 6 months to pursue corrective action or termination of employees if they are not fulfilling their duties. But we're basically saying with this legislation at 6 months, you should know, do you want this person to continue to be part of your team and continue in that growth and development process that will hopefully follow them through their entire career as a state employee?
Madam Chair and Leader, an expert witness. So during this 6 months, and it may have been in here, there's a lot of information. Is there the opportunity to fire without cause now gone? Or does cause still have to be there? As a retired FBI agent, the first year of your 2-year probation was without cause. And the second year you had to have some cause, along with the other reasons, it was still easier to terminate. Is the 6 months, should this be passed, is there a provision there for no cause, Madam Chair?
Madam Chair, I believe it's correct that they can be fired without cause within the confines of labor law, of course, within their first 6 months. Yeah. And I will reiterate that we do see many people fired with cause after their probationary period. As a union, we represent those folks, but we understand that happens, and sometimes it needs to.
Madam Chair, I yield the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Quickly, thank you for bringing this legislation forward. I just have a couple questions. First one, the probationary period. Does this affect any probationary period on firefighters, police officers, correction officers? As I'm reading here, something from the city of Albuquerque. Would this have any issue on this? Or are they using this as just a reference? I see it as a reference.
Madam Chair,
Madam
Representative, this would not affect any municipal employee, so at the local level, and it also doesn't apply to any first responders that are currently employed by the state either.
Excellent. And that, I think I was on the fence, but I'm glad that to see that I think police officers do need more time because we want them to be safe out there. And I think it takes a little bit more than just, saying rifling them through there. At the same time, Madam Chair, Representative, I think I like this. I don't think this is going to be enough, though, to keep people. Because, 1 year, look, in the private sector, we do 90 days. In 90 days, we usually pick it up pretty quick. If there's people are going to be, if that person's going to be a good fit. And really, it goes back to vetting before you hire. It's usually the best thing, right? Because everyone's wasting their time if you hire someone. And if you're dragging it for a year, my gosh, the probationary period means if I don't see that you're fit, you can let them go in 20 days or 6 months. It doesn't mean you have to wait a year. So I think it's disappointing to hear, Madam Chair, Representative, people, if you know that person isn't a good fit and you're waiting all the way to a year, I think that's false hope for that employee. I think that's not good for the agency. I don't think that's good for the other people that are working in that department, because guess what? That person wasn't performing anyway. And then on top of that, the little that they were performing, if you're going to let them go, now you don't have anything. So now you have to pick up even that. So I do agree that, it should be a quicker process, but I also think that we have to do a lot more than this. Madam Chair, and I'm not trying to build your bill, but I really would love to see us pay our people a more competitive wage, a better wage. I think we lose a lot of, I think the state of New Mexico trains people. We hire them, we train them, we give them the what do you call it? The resume that they need for another job, and then we paid for all that, and then they go somewhere else. So I think we need to build off of this, and I think this is a start, but I really would like to see us do a lot more, in especially when it comes to pay. That's just how I feel. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative. Are there any other questions? Any other questions? I have one, if they're not, real quick. My question has to do with, is there with our state personnel policies and procedures, or through our collective bargaining, is there a midway point within the probationary period whereby the supervisor managers get with these employees, go through what is working, how they're complying, and then what needs to be improved, and then maybe establish some sort of a work plan to get them through their next steps? I know that in the world that I came up from, that I worked, that was what we established, and that worked very well for retention. So, Representative.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. While it's not covered in our collective bargaining agreements because those do not cover employees in their probationary period, I believe probationary employees are supposed to be receiving 4 quarterly evaluations, one-on-one meetings with their manager throughout their probationary period. I will certainly state I largely do not see that happen, but it is, I believe, I don't think it's in SPO board group, but it's in policy.
Thank you. That's a very good way of being able to gauge across the board. So thank you. There are no other questions. And what is the will of the committee? Representative Wanda Johnson.
I'll second that.
Thank you. So there's a motion by Representative Johnson, seconded by Representative Terrazas. Do we have any opposition to this bill? But just one? All right. So we will do, well, no, we just will note the one opposition by Representative Reeb. And so then Representative Leader Shapansky, we have a do pass with 1 opposition. So that would make it a total of 10 in favor and 1 against. So we have a do pass on House Bill 129. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Chair.